Hi, Tim.
Hello, welcome to today's meeting on 4/22/2024, the Clackamas County Developmental Disability Advisory Council. It looks like we are a little bit under the numbers today for quorum, or do we have quorum today?
We don't have quorum.
We do not have quorum today. So it looks like we're gonna have a conversation with the committee members and guests that were pre-slated into the agenda that was made by the chair and co-chair, so, and of this committee. And I was hoping did we get any minutes from last month, and we need approval from?
The meeting minutes have not been sent out yet. We have a staff member that was out who does the minutes, and so we'll include those as soon as we can, and then on the next meeting, we'll vote those in, which is good because we don't have quorum right now, is it?
Yeah.
There's
We're good at that in ways of that, but we do need to approve the agenda in ways of that, or is that not there? All right, we don't need to approve agendas.
Can you see if people are getting in the waiting room?
It should show me, but
It
there's
should
not,
pop up.
yeah. There's
It should pop up.
Oh, okay.
So it's a big week for some of our members, maybe, and potentially in ways. But we'll see what, hopefully they'll come during the summertime and participate when they can. Yeah.
hang on. So Sarah says she's not able to get into the meeting.
Okay,
Let me see.
yeah, maybe.
She does, yes, you just need four.
And I might have to repeat on record about the thing, if she comes in, since I'm quorum, but we can pass it on to the next month. If we agree. In my case, I don't want to get of trying to get the angle on my, what that's gonna be, thank you. Oh, man. Tim, thank you very much for coming on this side of, handshake and all that stuff outside the recording on the record right now, but I appreciate your time, and Georgetta, it sounds like you're gonna be part of this, so I appreciate it.
Sure.
And I'll put it onto the record later, but I brought a friend over. This is the emergency pack that we got from the brokers and in ways that your colleagues have kind of viewed over the last 5 to 10 minutes when they were coming in here today, so. Hopefully, emergency ARPA funds and all conversations to get more information out of the council as we move forward with the agenda, and Sarah can catch up on it.
Georgetta, I wish you were here to see it in person.
I know.
It's a red for a backpack.
It's really
super cool,
Very
yeah.
cool.
You can take pictures maybe when I sign out, and that'll be the official member of the council.
Okay.
Maybe then you guys can send it, at least the QR code and all that stuff. I didn't open it till they opened it too. So.
He gave us permission.
Yeah.
For the record, we were given permission to open the bag.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's a backpack that can last more than 3 days, like what the original conversations were that I had on my advocacy side outside of the council.
I just resent the link to Sarah Schwartz. So hopefully she'll be joining us soon.
Should we mention anything about the delay of should probably put another mention of North Clackamas Park and other topics, or should we just continue on with other topics today? Which is totally fine on my side. Absolutely, thank you. I appreciate it.
Maybe we'll give it another minute to see if Sarah can log in, and then
Absolutely.
we can move on with the agenda. There we go. Okay.
Presbyterian Church.
It always throws me off when I see her log in.
Might need a reminder. Yes, I have faith. No pun intended.
You can log in and then there's just. You can log in, but then you can't see or hear anything that they can't see and hear you.
Yeah.
No, it's terrible.
Hello, Sarah.
Hi, I don't know what was going on. It just kept spinning. It was spinning.
It happens. So, we have quorum now.
We are at
All right, so we're gonna redo a little bit of things. So, my first question was, Amy, do we have a minutes made, for the council to approve from last month, and there was a reason again?
Yeah, we have a staff member that's been out that is doing the minutes, and so, once those get to me, I will send them out to you all. And then we'll just have to, review and approve for next time.
So I will pass the minutes till next month, in the agenda making and all that stuff. And all that, so, and another thing I showed, some of the group, but. Thing is, I brought my emergency pack that the broker system gave me a couple months ago. And way for us to not see and share, but just to show at least the county in ways that they may or may not be interested in looking. For ideas within what we've had conversations with in other parts outside of this type of position, so. Today we're here for a guest for public funds and emergency care packages or more, or is that the only topic?
Yeah.
So,
I was just gonna say, so, Tim and Georgetta, who are on the screen, are here. They are working on our ARPA project, so they're the coordinators for those projects, so they're going to give us an update on the provider engagement project, and then also, an update on our emergency response grant update. So, welcome. Thanks for
Thank
joining.
you. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
I am Georgetta Vandermeer, and I think I've seen you a couple times. I am the Provider Engagement Project part-time, and then the Emergency Preparedness Grant part-time. So I would love to give you an update on both, and then Tim.
Yeah, thank you guys. Nice to see everyone. I'm also a provider engagement project coordinator. I've been all kinds of things at the county, SC and DRC, all kinds of things, and been with the county for about 20 years. I'm really excited to be part of this project.
And then I have a question for all of you to see what your preference is. We do have like a 2-page overview of the provider engagement project. We did kind of a research project. We can share that, or we can just give you a quick like 5-minute update. What would be your preference?
I think the more information that we can provide to the council in ways that we can engage either on official or what we can do would be the best thing. Would you guys agree with that?
I would, and Georgetta, having kind of seen this already myself, I think it'd be great if you would share that.
Awesome, perfect.
Thank you very much.
I made you co-host, so you should be able to share.
Nice, awesome. Let's see. Share. Is everyone seeing that? And I can make it bigger.
Much bigger.
Much bigger for us.
Bigger?
Yeah, I'd say another 25%. Yeah, there you go.
We're good? Okay.
Yeah, with trivial devices and modern technology, which at last is L. Thank you.
Of course. We'll take turns, Tim. I'll do the introduction and then maybe you'll do the first theme. We are doing the provider engagement project, which I think this has been brought up to your attention before. The first step of the project was where we did listening sessions with providers and service coordinators and Clackamas County staff. We also talked to licensing to see where there are common themes where providers might be needing more support or where the county can improve. And so the project goals were for providers to have clear and helpful information for them to run their home successfully when they start. Partnership between the county and providers will be improved. New providers are well prepared to serve residents ongoing. And so the themes that we are noticing, the reason the project started was that while new providers are meeting licensing requirement, they are needing more support than service coordinators are able to give them when meeting the support needs of individuals and paperwork requirements. We are noticing significant challenges, and Tim collected a lot of data since he was the DRC. And we noticed that since 2018, while foster homes have stayed pretty consistently, we had over 100 new independent group homes just in the past 5 years in Clackamas County. So there's a big growth, in the past 5 years through the pandemic. And so that's kind of what the background for the provider engagement project.
And Georgetta, I just to clarify for a second,
Yeah.
I think everybody's heard about this, but just so we're all clear and on the same page. when we say providers, we mean foster home providers and group home providers.
Thank you, I was gonna say.
Because I think if
you don't know.
if you haven't been talking about the project on a daily basis, it might, that might have been lost. So fostering group home providers is, when we say providers, that's who we're referring to.
Advocate wise, Georgetta, are we talking about host homes also and other independent living situations, just a foster home and other ideas and ways of the data being collected today rather than the future, right?
Foster care and group home right
Okay,
now.
no, host
That's
home.
it.
Okay, thank you very much. You help me give me that vocab. Understand.
You want to go with the first theme?
I do. I'm sorry I had to leave. I've got the risks of the problems with being at home. I have a dog running around. The themes that kind of came out of some of the listening sessions, one of them was effective communication. Providers found constructive and supportive feedback really helpful. They reported finding the monthly licensing emails helpful and the provider meetings really informative, as you can see. And then the county staff saw providers applying helpful feedback as far as like documentation and completing that correctly. And then the areas of growth in communication. Yeah, as you can see, it was a high percentage of providers that we interviewed. They mentioned that some county staff had kind of an accusatory tone when working with them. Group home and foster home providers expressed kind of a fear or anxiety about reaching out for support. And again, as you can read, it was kind of what we were hearing is that it was a worries or a fear of being judged, scrutinized, appearing to not know what they were doing. And then providers just kind of wanted more respect shown, a desire for more personable communication. I know a lot of foster and group home providers talked about they would say things like it was almost, Sarah, you know what I mean? Kind of like the good old days. I think things were much smaller and there's been a huge amount of growth. So I think they, a lot of people just still want more personable communication. There are cultural considerations, there are differences that we agree should be thought of and acknowledged. And then some program staff mentioned that there are some language barriers with staff and providers in residential homes. And also talked about the language barriers for document completion or even having a knowledge or developing a knowledge of the OARs. I think that's hard for some providers. And medical terminology can be challenging for people who are who English is a second language. Providers, some of our licensors and SCs reported that providers are not responding to document requests or meeting, those kind of expectations to have those in on time. And then SCs, licensors, everybody, I think, is reporting feeling overwhelmed and not having time to respond to all the requests.
And then another theme that arose was that 97% of providers expressed the importance of having an SE who knows their residents, someone to share information and resources, someone to answer questions. And this was similar. County staff also showed like they really do appreciate collaboration. When there's collaboration, everyone is set up to succeed better. So that was an important theme that came up through the research we conducted.
Can I ask a really quick question, Tim and Georgetta? On the documents, not like the request for documentation not being quickly, is that to service coordinators or is that to licensing? Do you know?
It was both.
It was both, okay.
We heard
Both.
that from both, yes.
Yeah,
And
that's a good question.
And we do want to clarify, it was also the other way around. It wasn't just SCs not responding or licensing, but when SCs or licensors requested that from provider homes, they were also delaying that. And so, the process for licensing was taking longer. So it was a little bit on both sides.
That, that's what I was meaning. Was it like providers not replying quickly to service coordinators or licensing or both? So that's kind of what I was.
All both, yeah,
Thank you for clarifying.
yeah,
And I can do the next one too.
okay.
And so right now we're kind of in the process. So another big theme, it was almost everyone brought up documentation. There was a lot of county staff noticing that there was inconsistency with documents received, inconsistency with expectations of completing documents. Sometimes providers, residential providers were confused at what their expectations were. There was the number one citation that was coming up for licensors was around documentation. There was a lot of difficulty finding from providers, finding the documents they need, searching for them. Some of the websites aren't very user-friendly where they're, through ODHS. Difficulties with getting documents on time. And then a majority of the time, SEs and licensors felt like they spent a lot of time around documents when providers should know how to fill or complete some of these. This could be because newer providers are expecting county staff to support them with documentation, and county staff is expecting them to know how to complete them if they have, a business through residential. Would you like to
I was
present?
gonna say, sorry, I'm just waiting for you. Are we on website?
Yeah, if you want to do trainings too.
Okay, of course. So as far as the website goes, 61% of providers interviewed and a lot of members of the licensing team as well reported they would benefit from having a website to have forms, to get announcements, training reminders, and transmittals, copies, and other information. Documents that would be really easy to access, examples and templates for how to complete ISPs or safety plans or maybe protocols, things like that. I like the idea of having community resources and information about employment or day programs with openings. And training announcements. And then as far as trainings, both providers and county staff mentioned that trainings would be really helpful to ensure that everyone was equipped to meet the resident needs. Documentation completion was requested, crisis management, interacting with, we're like right now, we're thinking, we're kind of pursuing the idea of doing some sort of presentation or training on responding to and working with law enforcement. But crisis management is one thing, interacting with professionals, emergency department services, things like that. Some other trainings requested was kind of just to support people around the OARs interpreting. Drugs, obviously illegal drugs are sometimes being used in homes, or people are coming to the foster group homes under the influence. So training around that, and then just clarification on roles for providers, service coordinators, DRCs, the DRC referral process, licensing roles, just clarification around roles for everybody.
And so that was kind of the research that we did a couple months ago. And so since then, we have a steering committee of, I think, about 6 providers. We have SC lead and a licensing supervisor all meeting monthly. And there they are brainstorming together on solutions. And they're kind of, Tim and I then will move forward with that. And so things that we are currently working on include website development. It's actually a good time. Clackamas County as a whole is deciding that they want to make their websites more user-friendly. And we have started that process to see if we can have documents on there, maybe some video trainings for providers. So we are working through that process and meeting with people to see, what's allowed, what's not allowed, how can we work within that. We are also, Tim mentioned, we are hoping to interview some law enforcement on engagement to support residents, but also providers when law enforcement is involved. And then we're also hoping to start doing mini trainings for providers on different documents completion and like tips and tricks to be able to help that.
I don't know if this is already mentioned, Georgetta, because I did have to step away for a little bit, but this also feels so relevant. This feels like it's just, this project has come at the right time, because as we talked about in the presentations in February, and as everybody knows, the growth in Clackamas County of people coming into residential services, both group, foster, and a little bit of supported living, it's just incredible. When I was the DRC, I did see that growth, but it was about 3 or 4 years ago. I think we didn't have any of what we call now the more independent group homes, not, kind of the non-agency. We've gone from really 0, or I think 2, to over 100, well over 100 in 3 years. It's really significant. And that means there's so many new people that are needing the support. So I really do feel like this is really important and really timely.
Appreciate the information, Tim and Georgetta. Any questions before I raise my hand?
Okay, so I'll put on my council hat because I'm part of this engagement project too, so I kind of know some of the answers, but some questions that popped up when you guys were talking was whose responsibility will it be once the committee says these are the things that we want to focus on changing or implementing? Whose responsibility will it be to implement those? Is it going to be the providers and the county staff as a whole? Does it fall to county staff? Who's
Or the individual
responsible?
in the house?
Yeah, for making sure that the website will actually be created or the documentation, trainings will happen. Who sees that through?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think again, it depends on what the steering committee decides the goals, because some of the tasks could be for providers, depending on what the goals are. But for website, until December, it'll be Tim and myself for a lot of these projects. And then moving forward, that's things that we are still trying to figure out how to make sure it's sustainable and things are updated.
I have my own question, but I want to bump off this question if possible. When you say steering committee, what does Clackamas County already have available that is being told to the steering committee in ways that are going to be implemented? And if there is a change in the steering committee, how is Clackamas County going to be, that relationship of communication is going to be communicated between each other and the changes that may or may not be made because of the steering committee or advisory council or other places within Clackamas County?
Ooh.
Because
Sure.
when we do website design, there's already a format. There's already people involved with, certain ethics within OAR and certain other directives. How is that steering committee gonna change within the voice, if there is a change, in ways that we can still have the voices be heard, in ways that you just put it to the steering committee and the question that was just made of who's gonna be responsible?
I think if I can
Yeah.
chime in, I think the idea of that is that the steering committee is specific to this particular project. And so we do need to update the whole website, right? But there's a portion that will be specifically for providers, as a resource for providers to go to. And that's the part that they're gonna have more say on. Of course, they'll have ideas perhaps about what the general website can look like. But it's more just listening and taking that information in and bringing it back to leadership, back to PGA, because PGA has rules on what we can and can't put on the website. So ultimately, they're making some recommendations and we are heavily utilizing them to figure out what the provider portion of the website should look like. Is that?
Yes, thank you, Amy.
Yeah, and I think the other piece that was asked was around the maintenance, right? So once the project itself is done, then how is it sustained, which is what I think Georgetta was referencing around that's still a future conversation that how to maintain that website once it's got all the stuff in it. You know, because things change, they'll need to be updated, the provider needs may change, so, yeah, no, I hear that.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. I understand. Thanks for clarifying that.
And part of that even, you know, we're thinking through that, maybe we won't do a document on like our website, but maybe we'll use the link directly to you know, the source. That way if they update it, they can follow that link there. So we're trying to think of things to make it sustainable.
Yeah.
So if we have any suggestions, go to the advisory council, whatever the
Steering committee?
steering committee. Okay,
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I did.
If there's suggestions, so if the council.
so we don't ask you in pointing out the question, we can go to the steering committee.
I would say you could, she's on the steering committee.
And the council, so if you have any questions.
Without conflict, we will talk, and I'll refer my questions off on that, those type of things. Chair or Colleen, did you have any questions on that portion within the, I wanna make sure you guys feel I'm truly included in this, rather than just me asking. Honestly, I understand where you're coming from on this one issue, but to Clackamas County, I heard nothing on self-advocate and foster home conditions and ways of that. And I don't know how to deal with that as an advocate. As chair, I understand I can take it and we can just have this meeting, but there are certain concerns in between advocates, very concerned about, these type of environment of what you guys are trying to make changes on. And the second thing that I would do as an advocate is I'm not thinking of the word right now, I'm sorry, guys, but content deliverable, there I go. And multi ways of communicating visually, and whatnot. In ways of people people don't know how to read or don't know with disabilities and stuff like that. I want to keep your information in the provider category, but if you can, look into more ideas like that, I think that's the top two right now that I can think of within trying to communicate, what's happening today in that portion. I appreciate the work you're doing for Clackamas County and doing for providers and what you're trying to make changes within the website and the steering committee, but hopefully we'll be included in those conversations as we move forward within, certain other aspects within, the community's past history, which I understand it was so small into what may or may not be the future of how Clackamas County wants to direct itself. And I understand, Chair, we have to do what we can do today.
Thank you. I do appreciate that.
Really?
We did interview a couple residents as well, but I think unfortunately it was after we started the project, and I think if we ever do something like this in the future, that is definitely so important.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's really important to maybe tackle this first, because if the providers in the county can have a good working relationship, it only benefits the clients that we take care of. And if documentation is done successfully and everyone's understanding it, that benefits and trickles down to the care needs of the individuals that we support. So I think if we can tackle this almost, you would say, internal piece, it definitely is going to benefit those folks that we
I
support.
appreciate you taking on, what you're representing and the voice on that. One thing I saw that was really shocking to me is the fear level. There's fear level in advocate land all over the place in ways to put out a voice. And now I'm hearing almost exactly the same fear metrics in ways that may or may not be there. So there might need some communication to leadership building or something later on, but that's not the space right now, I don't think, for this. But I was amazed on those stats, feeling the same way in ways of all levels of care, who's responsible for that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I feel
No,
like-
thank you guys.
I feel like sometimes foster home providers, you get one bad story and then that's kind of shines on the entire group. So I think not only do you trying to fight the stigma that foster care is somehow bad or abusive, and then you take somebody that doesn't quite understand what their role is and what they're even supposed to be doing, and then you compound that and there's a fear to even ask. And I feel like then that's when neglect can happen and things like that. So hopefully we can combat some of that with this committee.
I'll put my chair hat back on, but thank you for looking on the advocacy edges on that. Is there another thing that we were?
Should I do an update on emergency?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
please.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Might take another 3 minutes out of the agenda, but we'll be on time. So, thank you.
So we, Clackamas County just last week got approved to accept the funding, so we are a little behind other counties or community partners. As we can see, some people already have their packs. So right now we are working with Omnia Partners. We have to do a lot of, in order to get procurement, because of 3 companies so far, including like Home Depot, Safeware, and Global Industrial. And then Red Fora is a very popular one. They seem to have really high quality. It's the examples you saw. And so we are hoping to piggyback off of Lane County's contract. And so we are still waiting behind the scenes to see if that's something that we are allowed to do once we get their contract sent over to us. Then we'll have the county staff review that to see if that's available. So right now we're in the process of determining what supplies to get and from whom. And then from there, we're hoping to have a survey made public. And I think we are meeting with the different teams, supervisors, to see at the preference if they would like residents to complete it or have their SCs reaching out to each individual to see what would be the most beneficial for individuals to get this information out. And then once those are ordered, we are going to be providing the items based on need. So individuals with, higher medical needs or immediate need will probably get items before somebody who already has emergency supplies and support. But it is available to all residents in Clackamas County in our program.
Any questions on an update on the emergency packs that you may or may not receive depending on service levels and stuff like that?
I have a question. So Georgetta, you said based on need, so would somebody living in residential services be lower on that need because like providers are supposed to have emergency plans? So individuals living on their own would get them first?
Yes.
So that means all service level individuals are first or just the top levels have need?
I'm sorry.
Does that mean all service levels of individual living situations or just subject as needed in the level 5 and level 4 kids?
So we have an equity kind of sheet. So everyone will have access to these supplies and will get them within, the grant period if they are interested in for them and want to apply. But yes, we'll go on like highest need in case something were to happen or an emergency. In the meantime, that way they will get them first. And that's kind of something that we were asked to do to keep in mind, to be equitable when giving out the resources.
I appreciate you telling me about the equitable sheet in Clackamas County languages rather than level of service needs and languages that I go on. So thank you very much.
So my daughter has received one already. She has a broker. Her case manages. I can't talk today. Her case management is being done through a brokerage, and she received hers. I don't know, about a month ago, something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to remember when the case manager presented that there were like 3 different options. What could you tell us again what the 3 different options are?
We haven't determined that, so we're still in the background of some people have done, other counties will give them like a food option, an overall option, or a medical option, and then people can choose their preferences. We're still trying to determine based on cost and what's available, so we don't quite have that yet, but we're hoping to have that soon. But that's a great question.
I think what I wanted to point out, obviously, was here, I understand high needs need different things than lower needs in particular. I'm hoping that the time gap of them receiving it is maybe a little bit tighter. Now I'm hearing you a little bit, but I do think it is understandable. You guys have to do the direction of steering, whatever committee you have or whatever area you have in the direction that Clackamas County needs to be. But I did want to point out, it's understandable as long as most of the people that who would ask for them are receiving them.
Yeah, and we are hoping to ask everyone at the same time. We're just gonna, the way we're ordering will be based on that.
And to piggyback on that, do you have like a deadline of when all of them will be passed out? Like, is there a marker you are supposed to hit, or is it just kind of open?
So the grant is available till March of 2025.
Okay.
Beginning of March, so. Mhm.
Thank you. Hopefully that'll help everybody across the home. And yeah, people who've already received them can also help out. Calling any questions on the emergency grants and ways that they Well, thank you very much for your time, Judith and Tim. I think we have had a pleasant conversation, I hope, in ways of trying to get through, what's happening new and the language disparity between what we hear on our own side versus how we act as public members. So thank you very much for your time.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
If you have your questions, then to
I'll see these two.
No, I'm sure you can do that. I appreciate you on council and way to go to use that too, trust me. Without bias. All right, so thank you very much, guys.
Sure.
Thanks, Tim and Georgina.
Thank
No
you.
problem.
Good luck on the dog, Tim. I'll point that out for creative moment as we flash to the real business
It's the Stacey, Amy,
Yep,
Stacey
it's the-
Kim show.
Yes,
Yes.
Amy Stacy Kim Show.
Well, we did do the thing together, but the next
Yes.
one would be the bylaws and general updates.
Yes, so I think one thing that we wanted to do today was to give the council kind of an update on where we're at as the county in our program. We have recently been doing kind of a deeper dig into the role of the advisory council, our bylaws, the expectations of Clackamas County for our advisory council versus the expectations of ODDS on our council. And we have a newer person who is kind of overseeing and supporting all of our advisory boards. So we actually have a person that we can go to get some questions answered that we didn't really have clear access to before. So we've kind of come to a place where we have information and resources to help get better support on how to kind of run this council and have it be a productive council. And as we do this deeper dive, we are just finding more and more information and that there needs to be some work done. So one thing that we have found for sure is that our bylaws and our requirements by the Oregon Administrative Rule for ODDS, they don't necessarily match up. So what we want to do and what we are planning to do is adjust our bylaws so that it matches more closely with what the OARs are requesting of us and requiring of us. And so there's a lot of like back-end work that's going to have to happen as far as us and communicating with the Board of County Commissioners. That has to be approved by them. And obviously we want to bring that back to you all before we even get to those steps. We're still kind of waiting for clarification on what parts we can adjust and what parts we can't. So, for example, our OARs say 4 times a year. We have it right now as like 8 times a year. Another example is it just in the OARs, it says we need to have a broad representation of the people of the county, right? And then in our bylaws, it states very specifically how many providers we want. Providers meaning providers of services, developmental or intellectual disability services, not just fostering group home. One advocate. So it really kind of lays all of this out very specifically. So there's just some like discrepancies. And then our county ones say you're going to advise the Board of County Commissioners, which we technically can as a council, if you guys are all in agreement on something in particular. But not having our bylaws be super clear and understandable has really, I think, made it difficult for our advisory board to move forward because we don't have a clear path. And so I think that's led to a lot of confusion. People have their own ideas about what they want to change, what they want to have impact on. So that's one thing that we're going to do is look at our bylaws, adjust those, make them more in accordance with our OARs, bring those back to you, run them through the Board of County Commissioners and get those adjusted. So that's one thing that we're going to do on our end. And like I said, we'll bring that back to you guys for review before we finalize anything.
Are we gonna have a subcommittee or someone to help do at least the end of the process within that, or is it gonna be county driven?
I'm not sure. I think one thing that we know is that we don't know what we can adjust and what we can't adjust in the bylaws right now. So there's still a lot of information that we don't have. We just know it needs to be adjusted because as it reads right now, it doesn't make much sense and it doesn't give us a path on how to move forward and what the responsibilities of the advisory council are. So that's one piece of it. Another thing that we are really hoping to do is create an annual plan. And so in absence of very clear bylaws, some of the other advisory boards in the county have an annual plan. And I will show you an example on the screen. Let's see. So this one is, can you guys see this okay? This is the Veterans Advisory Council. This is a draft of their annual plan. And so on here, they have just some very like specific goals that they want to do or that they have for their council. So they want to build a strong advisory council. And then this, again, this is a draft, so it doesn't have all the information in here. This is just a template given to us.
I've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. Ensure that every veteran and living in Clackamas County knows about the services, understands how to access those services and feels they belong. They want to host a Veterans Expo. So they have metrics and activities, right? So they have some measurable things on here. And this is just for this year. So January through June of next year. So what we'd like to do is for our council to create something like this. Because this will help give us some clear direction when things get kind of wonky and we're trying to figure out what we want to do next.
Yeah.
We can just reorient ourselves back to this annual plan. And it's something that we've all agreed on and it has common goals and things like that.
Sounds like a good document, put a mission statement, adapt a mission statement on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would certainly, it's been hard as chair when I've been trying to ask for bylaws and certain positions within certain aspect of a position of our own here. You know, like just being a public member versus a private member. You know, while I do my policy stuff and certain other advocacy area, not on behalf of Clackamas County, but you know, it's just been difficult. Can we meet with the Veterans Committee chair, you know, in ways of trying to figure out how we can move this council forward and ideas and stuff. So I hope we can, as a council, as a person, you know, as a group, make our desires and whatnot into this type of document in ways that will streamline the advisory council rather than just starting up and doing, you know, we're just beginning to something that will be long-standing within Clackamas County and you know, partners in between. So I appreciate us trying to get back to the main focus. What do you need from us? In a way that you guys are still trying to figure out, you know, the OARs and the counties. Okay.
So I think right now, an initial ask would be to think about some goals that you all have for being on the council. Everybody has come to this council with some ideas that they are hoping for and some goals in mind. And so we would like to hear what you all are like, where is your point of interest with being on this council and how you want to give back to this, you know, program or what your reason is for being here. We also have some ideas on things that we would like your guidance on. And so it would be helpful to know if you are interested in those things and how that we then incorporate those into maybe an annual plan. Man, it doesn't have to be this year, right? It could be very, you know, it could go on into the next year as well. So a couple of things that we talked about were to review and evaluate services. And so, you know, with having a couple of guests here to talk about parts of our program. I think we're starting to get on that track. If you know more about the services that we have, the better you're able to kind of review and evaluate. We'd like input on some quality assurance activities. So when we have our audits, you can be more involved and like, things that we need improvements on and learning about why those things are coming up for us, whether it be, funding or whatever it may be, kind of uncovering those and seeing if you are interested in, helping problem solve some of that or seeing how we can adjust things to improve our services here at the county. Our service equity areas, so making sure that access is equitable to all our community members in Clackamas County and how we can improve that. And then another one is recruiting new advisory board members. It's really hard, it's just at the county to do that. And so coming up with like some real ways on how we can get a better representation of folks in our community to make sure that many different types of voices get heard, not just a particular group or not just a particular part of Clackamas County. Like, so we're making sure that we're getting a good, good representation. Because if you guys decide, hey, we want to provide testimony at the state level for some specific thing, everybody in the council has to be in agreement on that if the council wants to go and represent. And so it's going to be hard to have that kind of equal voice if we don't have a good, solid council member that's made up of diverse voices, right?
It's very hard.
So those are a few things. Did I leave any out?
I don't think you, no, those are the highlights.
Yeah, so and those are just ours. If you guys have, we're totally open to ideas on, what you guys would like to do and use this council time for.
I think having a clear goal sheet would be great. Like my brain works better when I can see what's coming up and think about it and plan and like actually hit the goal. It works a lot better. And I agree with all of those. Having that would be great. That'd be really good.
So maybe we can,
And it might be easier to recruit people if they know what the expectations are.
They understand already, right?
and the things that we are going to work on, right? Like right now, even for me as, the liaison, like it's hard to say, like, what does the council do? Well, we talk about a lot of different issues. And so it's having that clear guidance and here's the things we're working on. It's hard to recruit people for sure.
And I think it will give the council our goal, as with any advisory council, is that it's really self-run, right? And our goal is to be able to step back and have you be the advisory people supporting the program, right? And it obviously hasn't felt like that. It's been us sort of always bringing things to you and you going, okay, and then you ask questions and we're like, whoa, wait a minute. And so I think it'll be a way to be able to give the council that role of being self-run and bringing forward things when you have that, as well as being the action takers on some of the questions or the concerns or the whatever. It is like, have a question about legislative stuff. It's not us going back and finding things. It's how do we as a council want to address this particular thing?
Yeah.
Right? And you also have the conversation. And maybe it's we write a letter to Fair Boards and the council writes a letter to Fair Boards and agrees on what the letter says and just things like that where
There's been incidents in ways it's been hard to judge on a policy making in ways that if we want to use the council name or not. In ways of being members of a certain legislative construct. And though it hasn't been a conflict of interest of mine, I could see where the disparity without a goal sheet in ways of how we're gonna work as a team.
Yeah.
Than just our single goal and be wanting to work 20 hours a week for 6 weeks, pay mark. In ways that I don't think I've really pushed that in many of my advocacy areas a lot because we have different roles in different places. So that to me is, I think, important as current chair, maybe if you guys would allow me chair again, but depending on what you guys' vote is. But what I mean is that's important to me in the bylaws. One question on the advocacy side is, can you guys help me know what we've already touched on in the last year or two that we've been together in these three categories that you guys mentioned? Like with our talk with Brooke, like going to the North Blackness Park and Recs and trying to make a goal, you know, at that time. And other, like maybe being on the hiring panel of what Sasha put on, and a member on this council. Two other ideas, that would really help me in understanding, you know, where this goal sheet should focus us into in ways that we can put our own work. Because I love how much we talked about what type of tree we would for you guys on public. We talked about what tree we wanted to be. I was a fruit tree and a vegetable tree, so we could spread out certain things. But one trying to point out is it will help us concentrate on today and what our goals is today. Now, kind of knowing that sometimes it does take months. You know, differently in different communication levels within our own personal experience versus what we have contributed in the out world and how we contribute as a community. Sarah, Colleen, I don't know if you want to point out anything, please do what you do, but I do believe we should probably get to the bylaw because it is hard to know if you can walk on behalf of the Junior Road Festival versus, you know, a free ticket from something not on the behalf of the council. It's hard to maneuver that in ways that, you know, me signing in twice today because I have my personal stuff versus my professional duties. And I don't know if it's because I'm disabled, but it sounds like with the speeches of the last time, there are certain disparities within multiple communities outside just my own personal advocacy.
Okay. And you offered them a chance to talk and then didn't let them have a chance to talk. Oh. Let's see
No,
what
that's
we
on
want to
me,
hear then.
that's on me.
Oh, it's fine. I like John's idea of looking back on what we have discussed and what, but yeah, I would like to know, I'm happy to help in any way, but I'd like something more defined. In terms of, you know, what are we working towards? How can we assist? How can we move from being sort of the listeners that information is presented to being sort of the drivers?
Yes, absolutely.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Sarah summed it up for me too.
Thanks.
I think what we've recognized too is that to get there, we're still gonna have to give you a little bit of structure. So the purpose, some of the structure, and then you all can sort of develop goals and vision and you become more engaged as active members. And so, I mean, I think that's one of the things we've recognized. The other thing is when we looked at our bylaws, they were first adopted in 2004, last revisited in 2016. So well prior to the pandemic, they talked about oversight subcommittee for family support. That's not needed, doesn't exist. And so there's some structural things, but there's also some things that just are totally, we can't even do them. It doesn't even pertain anymore. So we gotta clean it up. I think people need to know the purpose of this if they're going to give their time and energy and effort. And we want a robust council with more members. And if we want that and we want them to be engaged, then we're gonna have to fix this. So, and Kim, none of us, well, Amy's becoming an expert, but we've never done this before either. And so we're learning a lot, but what we definitely see is the need for some sort of build the structure and then figure out how to support you all to be the ones who take the action, really, and advise us at the times it's needed. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would love that. I think that we all come from different backgrounds. So far, just in a small group of us, you know, like foster provider, parents, advocates. And so my passion would obviously be what I know, you know, like what I can bring to the council and what I would want to advocate for and you know, whatever. But I think if we had goals that we all kind of knew and understood, and you know, like what we bring to the table, that would be really great. Cause I don't know, I've learned a lot on the parent side of things, cause I only see adult services for one and foster provider services, and so some of the things that different members brought out, I was like, wow, I would have never even known, like would just completely go over my head. So I think that if we all contributed goals for our expertise and our interest, it would be awesome. Plus, we could each kind of learn and do what we already know and are comfortable with, and just, so that would be great. Yeah.
So I think one thing that we can work on in the background until we meet again is think about, and we have goals too. We can do our planning on our next meeting, if that works for folks. And until we meet next time, we can think about what those goals might be. So think about your own expertise, what you're passionate about, and what you have learned so far, and we can then create some goals.
Sounds like the council is in agreement of that for next month anyways, depending on my co-chair, if they do it or not attend to the planning meeting. I'm definitely willing to, understand the next position of how we move forward between the OAR and the county program within an advisory council. Another thing, the ones like the veterans and stuff like that, I would love to have their opinions too, in ways of how they maneuver, because there's not that many people that we can talk to outside of ourselves. Then whatnot, but I appreciate the effort, and it sounds like we're going to attract on gold and beyond just trees and other subject points. So that's one of my main goals, share in ways that we can move forward in this type of conversation. So thank you.
Even communication in between meetings, via email and whatnot would be really helpful sometimes.
And it's hard to know what is official though, and what is personal, when we use our personal. You have a Platinum County, email address. So no,
I don't, I'm
no,
personal.
I
No.
But I want to point out that disparity of what's personal, what is.
You can meet outside of the meetings.
So those type of bylaws, those type of would be great to know for the future of this type of council.
Yeah, then you can kind of brainstorm things off session and then come together and
You guys would all have to talk about what works for you all.
Yeah.
Essentially. So there's, especially if there was, something that you wanted to write a letter on or something, there's a lot that you're not gonna get accomplished, meeting 4 or 8 times a year for an hour and a half. So it might require, if you guys decide as a group that you wanna move forward on something, it might take time outside of these walls or screens or whatever, for you to do that. So that would be something that you all would agree on.
Absolutely. I mean, I would love on the legislative piece of things, if as a council, we looked at some stuff and we wanted to go as a council, it holds more weight. When you're just one person sitting in that room, they don't hear you. And I mean, even though there's 4 of us, the being, a council, I don't know, it just garners a little bit more.
And it garners way more than them hearing from us.
Yeah.
They don't wanna hear from us.
We tell them all sorts of things.
Yeah, we do, but yeah.
We need to implement whatever it is that's advocated for.
There should be,
They get limited opportunity to make like high level changes, and I think that's maybe one of the misconceptions of this group, is that we have the ability to change from our program, change something, policy things at the state that we don't.
We have much more power over our program here at the
Yes,
county,
Exactly.
and that's kind of what this board oversees.
I think procedure is the most important, in ways that we don't go behind people's back. In ways of their own conversation space, knowing that they can pass policies behind without, consent of the full council.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's something that really does concern me, because I would love to put my name on bills. But the thing is, within the title, but I know that that's not interviews that a certain bylaw. And how we would do it. And that's something that really, we gotta figure out a way, if we're gonna do it offline, how we're gonna really make it official.
Well, it would be something you would vote on during the council meeting,
Yeah.
and
And have
then,
to require.
That's what I'm trying to get on record. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
you don't go and, you wouldn't go and.
Just like a board of directors.
Anything, as that it all gets approved as the council, in a formal meeting and then,
Absolutely.
and everybody's in agreement, so then they're not operating outside of that as a member of the council.
Right.
It's-
And Colleen and Sarah, thank you very much for letting me go that deep into it, because there may be those questioning moments that we think we have more power than we don't sometimes, and I really need to hear that we do have to approve for advocates, for parents, for, foster providers and stuff like that, that there does have to be a final, yes, just like a board of directors needed, rather than, someone on the department of that company voting on behalf of everybody, even though it wasn't approved by the board or the council, so thank you.
I'm gonna keep us going if that's okay. I have a few more things. One thing I sent you guys, I believe I sent you 3 things in addition to the agenda. So, there was the Oregon Government Ethics Law, a guide for public officials. Go ahead and scratch that.
Ignore it.
There was restriction on political campaigning by public employees. Go ahead and also scratch that.
Okay.
The mandatory abuse reporting training at your leisure, please complete it. I do think that one will stick, as at some point you will need to go through that training as a member of the advisory board. That said, Sarah, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I just looked at it very briefly. It looked like just a video. Is there an actual training module that we do and get a certificate and do all of that?
It's just a video.
I think you just have to watch the video.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
That was 30 minutes. I watched it. It's 30 minutes and there isn't anything at the end of it.
And that all ties into the Clackamas County Advisory Member Policy that I sent you. So there was 4 things in addition to, okay, so all of those things are referenced on that document. I don't know if you got that far. But the Clackamas County Advisory Member Policy mentions these 3 things.
Yeah.
One thing that we learned today is that 2 of those things are obsolete. We're not doing those.
The first 2.
The first 2.
What you
That's
said,
it,
yes, okay.
So the mandatory abuse training, for children, I
Yeah.
believe. That's the one that I would complete that at your soonest-ish convenience.
Yeah.
The others will probably go away and that will be, that document will be adjusted. So what I would really like to go over, and that I hope that you maybe had a chance to at least look at, would be the, let me see here. The Clackamas County, Advisory Member Policy. And I won't go over the whole thing, but this is a document that I'm told that you signed at the beginning of when you started on the advisory boards, which I'm certain you did not because I don't have a copy of it. And I've never seen this document until very recently. So I would love for you all to please review this. I just want to go through one part of it because a lot of it's a lot of words. And you guys can read this on your own time. But I would like to go through the code of conduct part of this, just so that we're all kind of on the same page about how to interact with each other and the expectations around communication and participating in as a member of the advisory council. So, do we want to just take turn? I can read. Yeah. I can start. So code of conduct. This code of conduct requires that all advisory members serve the best interest of the advisory board, committee, commission, or council as a whole, regardless of personal interests. Do you want to take the second one?
Yeah. Advisory members treat all persons with respect and dignity by providing an environment free of unlawful discrimination or harassment based on or because of a person's protected class status, which includes but is not limited to race, color, religion, sex, including pregnancy, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, ethnicity, nationality, citizenship status, age, mental or physical disability, and marital status.
It also requires that advisory members perform duties without bias for or against any individual or group.
Do you have it open? You wanna take it? I have it. Do you have it open?
PDF.
Act within the boundaries of authority as advisory to the Board of County Commissioners.
And then Colleen or Sarah, if you have it open, you're welcome to take the next stop point, or I can continue on.
Sorry, I don't have it open.
Nope, no
I'll look
problem.
at
Okay,
it.
we'll
I'll
just
reread
continue
it
on this.
later.
I'll
I
just
would use
have it,
my
yeah.
personal phone if I wasn't in public one.
Advisory members will comply with all other aspects of Oregon Public Records Law, public meeting law, ethics law, and election laws, and serve as mandated reporter of suspected child abuse. I think that's where that training comes in.
And it requires that all advisory board members report all concerns or alleged violations promptly to advisory body chair or staff liaison or the department director.
And then I just want to read these last two dot points on here. The advisory body shall conduct open and well-publicized meetings. And then also provide opportunities for meaningful participation by all communities. So I would really like for you all to definitely read that and then the mandatory abuse training on your own, but I did want to go through that particular part of the advisory member policy to get us all on the same page about kind of communication expectations around how we talk to each other, how we talk to guests of the council, things like that, because I think it will kind of set the tone for how we invite guests in the future and how we have new members who might show interest. So we definitely want to be mindful of that. Because I think in being transparent, I think in some meetings, it has been hard to have guests. I think that there is, I'll say, the environment has not been friendly. It's been a little bit hostile at times as far as like the way that we question our guests. And, you know, these are folks who are coming to give us information about products or services or things like that. And while it is, you know, important to ask questions, I think we need to do that from a place of curiosity rather than a place of why isn't this getting done? Because oftentimes the people who are here presenting us with that information don't always have all of the control over what they're presenting. They're just there as a representative of whatever group they are representing. So I think we just need to be really mindful about how we communicate with our guests, how we communicate with each other, making sure that we're being respectful and you know, asking questions with curiosity. Does anybody want to?
I want to say
Yeah.
I think actually maybe moving forward when we're inviting guests to come up with a list of questions that we want to ask ahead of time and maybe email those to the guests. That way we all know what will be asked and answered and so on and so forth. And maybe that will help kind of fix that.
Yeah, I think we have done that. I think the problem kind of happens in the aftermath when we say you know, and we open up the questions. I think that's where, you know, because more information is given, then people have more questions, if that makes sense. So I think that's where some of that is, and whether it's intended to be hostile or not, it just kind of comes off that way. And I think people that are joining us, and even me at some points, it's felt a little intense walking out. So I think we just kind of want to just remind ourselves about being an advisory member on this board and just kind of.
Is there a meeting from the other advisory council that you can maybe give us so we can understand the contact that you're looking for? That would be a big help.
I'm not exactly sure what you're asking.
What I mean is that other advisory council meetings here with Blackness County, there must be one that looks like a certain way that you would like us to act in ways that could help us guide us of how we can build more welcome for a guest, which is important to have that welcome within them.
I see what you're saying.
So is there something that you can ask your colleagues and peers in ways that can help us guide us in visual cues? You can have one show set, you know, in the world, and you can have another type of demographic, you know, presentation saying the same information. If you can show us something, at least for me personally, I apologize, I'm not to be on the council. But it would be nice to know, because these people are guests, but this is like the only opportunity we get sometimes to talk to them. And sometimes it's confusing in ways that we get information. And then we have the follow-up questions afterwards. And I understand there's something that you're trying to help us with the boundaries of making them feel welcome. And I think that chair is very important to have them be welcome. But that's something that I, as someone with disabilities, would be really helpful. If you want me to speak like a certain person, I can tell, I'm not saying to be them, but what I mean is the format, knowing the format would be more helpful in understanding that, because I come from a world where I can ask those questions afterwards in certain other spaces, but not all people here have the ability to have those meeting spaces, give or take who they are and what they do. And so it is hard to sometimes decipher, you know, how to communicate. Like I mentioned, Kim here has helped me a lot in knowing the history. Stacy here has helped me a lot in other meeting spaces where that type of question need to be on an unofficial, not role here. But what I'm trying to point out is it does help. And I do want to have a welcome environment here. While I understand my own ethics is to scout and go to volleyball games and do certain things before I, you know, and knowing certain, you know, certain aspects, or go to Nelson, you know, do some other investigation before I even approach certain people. And sometimes that can be intimidating to some factors. But it would be nice to know some of that role and how you would like us to grow onto, you know, the actions that are being explained.
So I don't know that I have a specific example of another council. I really only go to this one. So I think it's just a style of communication where when we communicate and we're asking questions, or valid questions for sure. But I think when we ask from a place of like curiosity versus a place of why aren't you doing this, there's a difference in the way that feels as the person relaying the information. And then I also think one thing we did like the mission of the DD Advisory Council, right? But maybe also creating some like meeting agreements. And then if we just review those maybe at the beginning, so that it's kind of always on the forefront of our minds about how we're going to approach issues. It is important to kind of see where those holes are, right? But I think we need to look at them from a more strength-based stance, and how can we help fix this, or how can we help fix this issue, rather than why isn't somebody doing A, B, C, and D? So I think just kind of that mental shift from like, this is a problem and why isn't somebody doing it, to, why is this occurring? What can we do? I think just that kind of simple fix, and then just like meeting agreements on how we speak to each other, I think would go a really long way in welcoming new members, welcoming guests, and really having a welcoming, safe, you know, comfortable environment for all of us. So that would be another thing that we would like to suggest that maybe we create.
I hear you, for sure, and I think I would like to see, for example, we had Tim and Georgetta on today. It would have been nice maybe last month to kind of discuss, okay, so next month we're having so-and-so on, this is what they're gonna discuss. Does the council understand? So for instance, provider engagement project, I totally know what that is.
Yeah.
But there might be members that have no idea. So if we preemptively discuss that, and what do we want to ask them, it might also set the tone at the next meeting of, they aren't going to be able to solve this, or even maybe answer these things, but these are the things that the information we will be able to get out of them. That way, going into it ahead of time, everyone's expectations are already clear. So maybe it'll limit some of that reactive questioning.
Totally, and that makes sense. So maybe having time in the agenda to talk about the next meeting and save some space for the next meeting planning would be helpful. I totally agree.
Especially if there's gonna be guests.
So much sense.
Definitely if you're coaching, I mean, others may or may not be around. It does help having your voice. And I've been wanting to pre-plan 3 months ahead of a long time ago, and guests and stuff like that, so.
And I think a good thing to, something else for the council to consider maybe is, I think every meeting should have meeting agreements. That's my personal thing. We don't operate in our program at all without having meeting agreements. And so developing those, and those could also live on our agenda so that they're there every time. That's something we do with our meetings as far as.
When we send our notes out.
When
they're
I
right
send
at
our
the
note,
top.
yeah, so when the minutes go out or the notes or whatever, those meeting agreements are all on there, so you have as you're reviewing the minutes from the previous meeting, you're reminded about, okay, these are the agreements that we have for this meeting.
Colleen or Sarah, do you have any thoughts or feedback or?
I think we should also feel free if someone is, we think being inappropriate in a meeting in the way they're asking, that someone don't hesitate to say, hey, Colleen, let's table that question. That's not really appropriate for right now, because I do agree with you. I think there are times when some of the questions aren't exactly, they're not appropriate for the guests that we're having. So you just need to feel free to stop somebody, or maybe, hey, can we talk about that for a second? Because if we're gonna have people not want to return as a guest in the future, and we don't want that. We don't want to get a reputation as a bad advisory group. Yeah.
Or unfriendly or something like that, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Sarah came up, so
Oh.
make sure she has a
Yep,
chance.
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And so I want to apologize if if I came across as too harsh. And I'm so sorry I've forgotten his name, the gentleman who was here with us last month for abuse reporting, abuse investigations.
Mhm.
But I have to be honest, I felt I was taken by surprise when we asked about how can parents, and obviously I come from a parent perspective.
Yeah.
So how do I do my very best to protect my person, and protect her housemates or whomever, So I hope I didn't come across too harsh towards him, because it wasn't my intent. It just completely surprised me. And it is something I'd like to work on. I will tell you, to try to make some positive change in that area.
And that is one of the places where looking to the county is probably not going to be the place where we're going to be able to influence that. And so if that's something that's on the goal list for the council, as to like what kind of change do you want to see and what kind of impact you want to make, so that the council can agree to, because again, it's sort of that, I don't want to say, oh, we don't have any control over that and then do nothing. That isn't an area that I can directly influence, or that we at the county can directly influence. So how does the council, like, what would the council like to see happen in order to try to ask the questions, influence change? What would that look like? So
I think we all thought that was, that's a really great point, and I think that's a really great example of like how you can see what we can do on our program and the things that we have influence over and power over, and then there's some things that we are handed down to us. It was a great question, and so I think we, in the future, if in that specific instance, you can say, hey, to your advisory council members, I'd really like to see something changed here. What can we do? How do we, what do we do to get this changed? And so that's where you guys can really take the power and, maybe do a vote in a meeting or something. And then we, as the staff, can say, okay, and how can we support you if this is what the goal of the council is? So that's kind of what this should look like moving forward. And you're reviewing it's kind of some quality assurance stuff, right? Like, oh, I see this isn't there. Okay, how can we maybe change this, right? And this by no means was to take, place blame anywhere. It's just, we want to get us on the same page so we can move forward in a positive and productive way. So this is not.
There's definitely.
oh, it's just feedback that we received and personally I've experienced.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm sorry, Kim, I didn't hear.
I said, it's just feedback that we've received that we felt was important for the council to have, and I said, and at some point I felt like I personally experienced, so it's just one of those things where we want to make sure that we're making people who want to come and share information feel like they can do that without the feeling,
Story or
attacked, yeah, absolutely.
Or feeling that there might be something in the future without the council approval. So, where I'm at saying also, on my side, it is hard to know when we are in one environment than it is what you guys are requesting, that is from my edge. It's the same questions I asked, and, you know, when you guys, he said that I met with him, which I did, that was on a personal moment. But, exactly the same way I felt like I approached it. So that's what makes it kind of confusing sometimes in ways of what you're asking. I understand what you're asking, I think that council, we're gonna go that way. I just wanna make the point, it is sometimes knowing, you know, one person in one environment is totally different than knowing someone in the council environment. And I think that's something that does need to be expressed while we talk to our guests and other speakers.
So I want to be mindful of our time together. The only other thing that I wanted to mention is that our current bylaws do state that we do voting in May. For the executive committee, so the chair and the co-chair. So that will be up for re-election in May. So want you all to be thinking about what that looks like, whether.
Do you want to put nominations now?
What does it look like? So both positions are up for election.
And so do we have like duties and responsibilities for each position?
Well, I think all things considered, we're not quite there yet.
We're not
But I-
there yet. And I've done what I can. I would love to be chair again, but I would like to request a co-chair if that ability is not available within that time.
Yeah.
It's been a rough couple of months not having a co-chair in ways that they have their own personal life and their own reasons why.
Who's the co-chair?
It's Lisa. Sarah?
Is there any reason why John couldn't serve again? Is there any restriction on, is he term limited or anything like that?
I don't think that those positions themselves are term limited, it's just the people serve terms on the council.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I have until like 2025, I think mine first, 26. So I'll still be around, if not nominated chair or whatnot, but I just wanna make sure that we have full visibility on both positions. And I think that, and I love the work that those people are giving on the council and what we can and cannot agree with. But I also know that voting coming next month and someone may or may not need to be nominated today or very soon, so we can, you know, have them into the docket for next month.
Yeah, so I think what we can do is, I don't think we need to nominate anybody today. I think we can, it's up to you guys. But I think we can think about it and think about who we'd like to see in those positions, who is available. So one thing I can say for sure about those duties is that they need to be able to meet for our pre-planning meeting. So at least one other time, several weeks prior to the meeting to kind of plan out the agenda and be available for that hour-long meeting. Sometimes it's a half an hour, sometimes we get it done quickly, sometimes it's an hour, it just kind of depends.
And
That's the only really set in stone thing I would say that we would have to be available for. And as a co-chair, if the chair is absent, you would fill in as that chair for that meeting. So if John was chair and you were co-chair, you would be filling in his position if John had a different engagement that he had to be at. So those are the only things I can say for certain are what those positions do.
and I think, this is just an editorial comment here, is I think if we develop the goals and the plans, like the plan and then the goals and the things, agendas probably will be much easier.
Yes, because, yeah.
I'm running ahead, hopefully.
And that pre-meeting will
Sorry for the press.
be diminished down to a very.
15 minutes, yeah.
Very short.
Very brief.
If there's a framework to follow,
Yeah.
and so,
Good
It's
point.
just nice to have a counter opinion while
It
you
might
put
be-
outside just one person's view.
yeah, it may
Myself.
just resolve, once we get the plan.
Amy, can you put something out to the group, like an email, so that since it was a very small group today, just to tell everybody, hey, these positions are coming
Yes.
on?
Absolutely.
Good idea.
Absolutely.
And
I will put that in my notes right now, actually.
I would be interested in co-chair. I don't think
I second that
I
nomination.
think I know.
Well,
But just putting that out there as far
If
as
Lisa can't do it,
that, yeah, that would be, I'd be interested in that.
they have so much to do already, and so, you know,
So,
Sarah, please
I
try.
had just one more quick question. It's not about chair and co-chair. Earlier, Amy, you mentioned makeup of the council and you mentioned one self-advocate. Can there be more than one?
Why
Or
not?
you-
I don't know.
Okay.
Why
good,
not have that
good.
discussion, please?
Good.
I've been begging
So, there is-
votes on that.
I believe there is a discrepancy as far as advocate goes, because advocate isn't identified necessarily as a person in services. An advocate can be someone associated with in some fashion, whereas people in service, we definitely want
As many.
total of people in
Yes.
receiving services to be on the council.
Okay,
We would
great.
love to have
Mhm.
that be the case. An
Mhm.
advocate, as described in the bylaws, isn't a person in service necessarily. It's someone that is an advocate in an advocate role, so that is.
We still have like how many spots for individuals or families, individuals and families, so we still have 11
11.
spots
I
open
would,
for individuals and families, so yes, thank you for clarifying.
I want to apologize in public, I took off my chair hat and emotionally did that as an advocate, still advocate, I guess you would call it. Would there be a way that the council can guide with self-advocacy position percentage wise? And to make it easier, maybe hopefully, like say, a number of 4. Out of the number or add, or I understand that you can have really appreciate that, but. There should be more direction of a self-advocate and more voices of what I could pointed out. But I don't know how we can solidify the bylaws without trying to break the rules.
So to make sure I'm understanding, because anybody who comes and joins the council who's receiving services, I would. Love for them to be identified as a they're self-advocates.
I understand, I don't want the past to happen personally in ways of just providers and I would. In ways of then, so I would love to have that conversation noted for today's meeting. In ways to share that what the goal that I'm hoping for and more clarification for next month in ways that we can hopefully bring forward more self-advocates or. Some voices that are not just in the same room. Basically, and I'm not trying to point out one here, I'm talking about when I'm in a board meeting. And when you see a 2-to-1 vote on certain issues that does concern me. But I do believe that we should have more self-advocates.
I think
Back on.
going back to having a yearly goal sheet. As far as somebody who, supports individuals, I think I might be able to encourage somebody to come if they knew why they were coming and what they were talking about, because I think this environment, all the things we discussed can be really overwhelming and intimidating. If the individual doesn't know why they're even here or what they're doing. So I think it goes kind of back to having a yearly goal sheet where we could encourage people.
And we have had that, and we have had people not come back because of exactly what you just stated, so yeah.
I think if we focus our stuff, expand our abilities to hopefully recruit and stay on track, hopefully we can get to the next step on that topic point. We'll see what happens next month. Again, like I said, I would love to chair one more time, but it's up to you guys and other people, opinions of the council. So thank you for the opportunity and hopefully next month we'll see what we do on, I appreciate you nominating yourself on that. We'll see what Lisa plays, there's Gotcha, and there's guys, another Mimi. They'll name all the members, hopefully.
I think so, yeah.
So I'm gonna just say it out loud, I know there's no one here, but for public records, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak? All right, I would like to adjourn the meeting, any other concerns or goods for the order? Nope, all right, you guys have a great weekend and week and all that stuff, thank you for the work you guys do, thank you Clapham County, and thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, everyone. Thank you.
See you next time.
Next time.
Bye, guys.